topic.
Exactly.
Anyway, let's talk about today's topic. And for all of you out there who want to join the conversation, do send your questions to the WhatsApp number 0204 447 033. We're continuing our conversation on menstruation. So if we can quickly recap what we said menstruation was and how we can do proper hygiene when it's time.
Okay, all right. So menstruation again is, it happens, it's a physiological process, it's a normal process. When we say physiological, it's normal. It's not a disease, as people would term it as, oh, or maybe when you have children who are sexually maturing, you should be able to explain to them what menstruation is. It just shows that you are sexually maturing from a child to an adult. So it's normal. And basically what happens in menstruation is that you have the flow of blood from the uterus through the vagina, and it's periodic. It usually happens every month. And the reason for this is that the body, together with the brain, what happens is that you have hormones within the brain that signal something we call, so it's a hypothalamus that signals the anterior pituitary through hormones to help with the preparation. So it's like we are preparing the womb to receive an egg and possibly a sperm for fertilization, to prepare the grounds so that it's conducive to be able to nurture that zygote, or to be able to nurture that egg plus sperm. But if after a period that egg stays there and then no fertilization takes place, what happens is that the hormones will now start to regress. So when these hormones regress, then there's breakdown of that inner lining. So the inner lining within the uterus is called the endometrium. So that is what actually will lay down to make sure that it is conducive enough to be able to take care of that egg or sperm that may fertilize within the uterus. But if that doesn't happen, if the action doesn't happen, it means that there would be breakdown of this uterus, the endometrium within the uterus. There'll be breakdown, and then that is what we see outward as the blood that flows through the vagina. Okay. So this is what usually happens in a nutshell. And we also mentioned that there are times that during your menstrual cycle, people complain of so many things. People complain that, oh, during my menses, I become so tensed. I tend not to be able to go and do my normal activities. So I have, depending on my flow may be heavy, or some people may have very light flow. Some people too may end up having some pain that we call dysmenorrhea, okay, associated with the menstrual cycle. And some people may even end up having their breast being heavy. They feel that their breast is a little heavy and tender. All of these just let you know that the time of the month it's here, and then you end up having the normal physiological flow that happens. And the pain, people are very concerned about it. There's primary pain and then there's secondary pain, depending on what it is. So if it's primary, it means that it is solely associated with the menstrual cycle, and it's normal. There are times that some people may have pain because of the cramping actions. You need some hormones that would help with the, we call it peristalsis, or to help with contraction and relaxation so that the blood can come out. So you may end up having pain during this process. Others too may have pain because of other secondary causes. So other secondary causes may mean that you may have some endometriosis, or you may end up having some other gynecological conditions like fibroids associated. All of these can end up being causes of pain that you may have when it comes to your menses. But at least primarily, it has to do with the hormone that we call prostaglandin, which helps with this contraction and relaxation during the menstrual period to help with the flow. And how do we take care of this pain? There are so many home remedies that we can take care of, aside the fact that you can actually go over the counter and then get some analgesics or some pain medication over the counter and then take it, and you should be fine. You should be able to take care of your activities without being stalled by this physiologic process. Other ways could be that you can actually use this hot water bottle. So the hot water bottle, you can just make sure that you have some hot water within this bottle, and then you put it on the lower abdomen. It has a soothing effect, and you shouldn't have, it reduces the pain as well. If you do not have the hot water bottle, you can end up using even warm towel. Exactly. So you can have a towel that you can just warm it up in warm water, make sure that it's of the correct temperature, and then you put it there. You should be able to soothe the pain that you may be in it. And the other thing too may be that people think there are so many myths associated with menstruation. People think that, oh, when I'm menstruating, I'm not supposed to bath. It's a myth. Yes. And that is something that the fact is that is the most...
kind of myth?
Exactly. Because they feel that if they do bath, they are washing their fertility away.
Oh, my word.
You get it. So it's one of the things that we want to tell people. Rather, during your menstrual period, you're supposed to be taking your shower at least twice a day so that you don't end up risking you having an infection. The other thing is that people may say that, okay, during my menstruation, I'm not supposed to be involved in any sporting activities. And that is one thing that we don't want people to say, because you should be able to be active as much as possible, because even the exercise helps to reduce the pain that you may end up being in. Other thing is that people say that, okay, during my menstruation, I am not supposed to eat with my family members. I'm not supposed to watch the mirror, because if I do watch the mirror, or when I watch myself in the mirror, it's reduces my brightness. All of these are certain, myths that we need to talk about, and then disabuse people of some of these things that are going around, so that they can end up having very healthy menstrual periods. And then we would want to talk about the cycle itself. So what is the menstrual cycle? So the menstrual cycle is basically the first day that you see blood to the next time that you see another blood. So there are two schools of thoughts. People may end up, now there are a lot of apps that can help you know, oh, my cycle, it's from here to here. You just enter it and then you are able to calculate and then you go. But in the past, or even now, people still do use the calendar method, where the first time, at least for you to be able to know your cycle, the average is usually 28 days, but the range is about 21 to 35 days. So for you to be able to calculate this cycle, for you to know exactly what your cycle is, at least you need to be able to monitor your menstruation for the next 6 months to about a year. Where the first time you have your menses, you just go onto your calendar and then you mark it. The subsequent day you have it, you mark it. Then you count the number of days in between these two. Then it gives you an average of, okay, this is my possibly 22 days or maybe 28 days. Then you do that consistently for 6 months, and that will be able to give you a clearer picture of what your menstrual cycle is, or the average menstrual cycle that you have. Okay, and then I'm sure people would want to know, oh, so what are the safe periods? And, when am I fertile and all of that? Okay, so to be able to calculate that, to keep it short, we have the follicular phase and then we have the luteal phase. And usually the luteal phase is usually after your ovulation. Okay, so within the whole menstrual cycle, you have a particular time within those days that you'll be ovulating. So ovulation is basically the ovary or the egg moves into from the ovary, it moves into the uterus. Okay, so that's basically it. And then it stays there. And if you're lucky to have a sperm fertilize it, then it can implant. But if it doesn't implant, it means that the body would then mobilize itself, and then you end up breaking down the endometrium that has been laid down, and then it comes out as menstrual blood. Okay, so how do I know? So what we basically would say that you need your follicular or your luteal phase is usually 14 days. It's 14 days before the next menstrual flow. So you need to be, whatever the average of your cycle may be, you need to subtract about 14 days from it. And that will help you know when your predicted ovulation day. But even that predicted ovulation day, you need to give some time, some leeway space, about 2 days before and 2 days after. Then once you have that, you may end up having about 4 days or 3 days where you'd say, okay, so this is my fertility window. And then you can add about 3 days to it as well, just in case that to give room for the fact that sperm takes about 3 days, sometimes 5 days, for it to end up dying within if it is within the uterus. So that is how, once you have this window, then you know that anything outside it should be safe for you. So that's basically what the whole safe period issue is. And it's important that you keep this calendar so that you are able to tell your average cycle, the days of your average cycle. Some people may be 28, others may be 21, others may be 35. It's all normal, and you need to be reassured that it's normal. Anything that may be less than the 21 or above the 35, and it's consistent, then you may have to see the doctor for further examination to see if there are any issues or if there are any problems associated with that. Then we went on to talk about how do we keep ourselves? What are some of the menstrual hygiene products that are available that we can use? And we mentioned that we have the sanitary towel, which is this. We also have the tampon, which is within this. And then we have menstrual cups. And then we demonstrated how to properly or hygienically wear your menstrual pad, and then how to remove it hygienically as well. I'm sure we'll go over it again. And then we spoke about the fact that there are a lot of people out there who are still using the menstrual cloth. Yes, the only challenge with the menstrual cloth is that now we've even become much more innovative. People in the past just would look for cloth, and then they fold them in several folds, and then they use it. They wash it, keep it well, and then they use it. But now people are actually teaching people, other students or even young girls, how to sew their own menstrual pads, the reusable ones, okay, where you'll be taught how to sew it, and then you can actually, it also has this wing, just like it's mimicking the pad, the traditional pad that we use, and then it has a press stud at the end of it, so that you can actually lock it in place and then use it, and afterwards you can wash it and then dry it and then reuse it again. But the message that has to go ahead of this reusable parts is the fact that we need to take time to teach people how to use it and how to maintain it. It's very important. If you do not know how to maintain it, you have no business using it, because you end up causing more problems than you already have. Right. So we need to take our time to teach young girls, or to teach any group of people that we want to give these reusable parts, and then make sure that they do understand exactly how to maintain and how to use them hygienically before you give them these. Otherwise, our good old disposable parts, if you do have the means, you should just use it as it is.
There's a question here for you. Good morning. Why does menstrual period stop after childbirth for some time? Fiato from Kaswa wants to know.
Okay. So during childbirth, you have hormones. If you remember from the beginning, I mentioned that this whole menstrual cycle is natural, and it is controlled by the brain. Hormones within the brain that would go from the hypothalamus, then it goes to the anterior pituitary, and then the whole cycle starts. So if there's anything that disrupts that hormone flow, then you end up having periods where you wouldn't have your menstruation. So that is what happens during your childbirth, and then after some few months after, just to be able to make sure that you are in good state, and then you can continue before the whole cycle starts all over again.
Good morning, Ino and Jude. Kindly ask doctor whether it's advisable to take in things like coffee when menstruating.
Okay, so coffee, there are some studies that have shown that coffee can actually disrupt your hormones, and then lead to either maybe scanty menstrual flow, or you may end up having a lot of menstrual flow depending on your state. So if you are somebody who takes it in, I'm sure that you should be able to tell the pattern that you have. So it has to be personalized. So depending on your body and how it takes it, yes, it can have an effect on it. And even alcohol, you know, there are a lot of things that can disrupt the whole hormone, and then you may end up having either less days for your flow, or even you may end up bleeding much more, depending on the derangements that it can cause.
What should we be
hormones.
eating though when we're menstruating?
So the good old, you having to eat your vegetables, enough fruits, balanced diet, very important. Your balanced diet, and make sure that you reduce the refined foods that you are taking. So all the refined food, the Indomie and all of that, you need to reduce them. And then make sure that you're eating your balanced diet, portions that should contain good minerals, calcium, should contain your vegetables, should contain your fruits, and hydrate as much as possible. Very, very important. Once you hydrate and then you eat very clean, this should help with your regular menstrual period as much as possible, and make sure that you are avoiding things like excessive alcohol intake, smoking, caffeine, all of these things. And eventually, I mean, once you are able to eat, and then whole grain, very, very important as well. It's very nutritious, and then it has a lot of benefits that would help with even your menstruation and your menstrual health in the long run.
Are reusable sanitary towels hygienic? I feel they might breed infections. Nana from Pokwase wants to know.
Okay, so the reusable, as I mentioned, you need to, a lot of education has to go before you give to somebody, and you have to be sure that the person would be able to adhere to all of these hygienic protocols before you give to people. Okay, it is not in let's say low resource settings where people cannot afford parts, the disposable ones. These disposable parts now, I think a pack is about 18 cedis. 18 cedis, you know, some people may not be able to afford it. So if the only option that they have is the reusable,
It's 20 cedis.
it's now 20. All right, it's now 20 cedis. So you see, that's the cost, and some people may not be able to afford it. And the only thing they may afford would be the reusable ones. So you need to educate. What you need to do is that you need to educate them on how to hygienically wash it.
Right.
So it's a lot of blood that's going to collect blood. So you're supposed to be able to wash it under running water to reduce the burden of the blood in this reusable parts. Afterwards, you need to soak them in warm water and some detergents, but the detergent should not be strong, very strong detergents. And then you wash it after some few hours. After washing it, you need to sun dry it and make sure that it's crisp under the sun. And then you can even end up ironing it again before you reuse it. So it takes a lot for you to be able to use these reusable parts without having to infect yourself one way or the other.
Good morning, Sunday breakfast team. My name is Chantel. Please ask doctor that between the pad and tampons, which is safer and advisable to use?
Okay, so I would say that tampon and pad, depending on, all of them have their own advantages and disadvantages, depending on what you want to do. If, let's say, I want to swim, even in my menses, tampon will be a good thing for me to use because it is going to go in there and then soak the blood before I bring it out. And I don't need to be able to keep checking, oh, has something stained me and all of that. I would be able to do my daily activities without it. And even with the tampons, because it's something that you insert within, the smell, you may not be able to perceive the smell of the blood as well. So these are some of the advantages. Now, the disadvantage is that if you do insert it incorrectly, without washing your hands in a hygienic manner, you may end up introducing an infection into your reproductive system.
Right.
So that is one of the disadvantages. And then also you need to make sure that you are changing it at least 6 hours. You take it out. Whether it's stained, it has absorbed or it hasn't absorbed, because if you do keep it there for longer periods, you may end up breeding some infection, and then eventually you may end up with some infection. And for the pads, if I am going to be home, not doing anything, you can even do your daily activities, depending on what You know the quantities that you flow. So you should be able to wear it without, it's simple to use, simple to acquire, without any problems of having to insert in there. And then the only disadvantage is that you may end up soiling yourself without knowing. So you just need to be sure that, okay, for me, my day 1 or my day 2, I bleed this quantities. So every 4 hours or every 2 hours, I need to change. And I do that, and I'm sure you should be able to be fine with either of them.
Another one here. Do you advise that we have sexual intercourse when menstruating? So many questions.
So sexual intercourse is not contraindicated during menstruation. But if you are comfortable,
that's the thing,
you know, if you are comfortable having sexual intercourse during menstruation, then it's a personal thing, because you have increased chances of what? Depositing, even the penis can pick up this blood, and then blood, as I mentioned the last time, is a very good culture medium for bacterial growth. You know, if after the act, it's not cleaned as much as possible, it can be a source of infection to the male counterparts and even you as an individual. So it is not contraindicated, that if you're comfortable doing it, it's really not advised, and also not contraindicated. So depending on what you would want to do.
Wow. How should one prepare for menses as a teenager?
Okay. So how do you prepare for it? So it always starts from the parents. The parents need to start, and even our teachers in school, they need to start sensitizing these teenagers about the fact that they have started sexually maturing. So sexually maturing in a female is not only the beginning of menstruation, but also the fact that they will start having pubic hair, okay? And then they will start sweating more. Pubic hair plus sweating more means that now you don't have to be taking your shower once a day. You'd have to be what? Taking your shower multiple times so that you keep hygienic, you become hygienic in every way. The other thing is that you need to also sensitize that teenager that once you start menstruation, or the menstruation starts, you need to be careful. Chances are that now, if you should do anything, chances are that you can get pregnant. So all of these sensitizations need to start from home, from school. You teach this teenager all about it, so that when the teenager starts or sees the first spots, they have that confidence to be able to confine in an elderly person. So they confine in the elderly person that, oh, I saw this and that spots, and then that may mean, and you need to make it, demystify the whole menstruation and make it look like, oh, menstruation is a bad thing. No, you need to let them be comfortable, and they should be comfortable to talk about their reproductive health with menstruation being inclusive. And then you need to provide for them the menstrual pads, provide for them whichever menstrual hygiene products that you would be able to provide. You need to provide for them so that they don't struggle to go for them. Because if you don't provide, it means that they are going to be listening to somebody. Yes, they are going to be listening, and that may end up leading to other things that you may not be comfortable with. You know, so you need to be able to sensitize them.
And this is because I'm a guy, right?
Yeah.
But I know there's this whole thing about like premenstrual syndrome.
Yeah.
You know, where ladies tend to act in a particular way in that period.
Yeah.
Now, that kind of feeling, you know, sometimes emotional, even sometimes there are cravings, right?
Yeah.
And it's been seen as an excuse for people to act a certain way.
Yeah.
Is it really a thing, you know, what they refer to as the PMS?
Yeah.
Or it is biological, or it is, you know, people just wanting to do their own thing?
Yeah, so it does. So as I mentioned, it's all hormones. And tenderness or feeling heaviness in your breasts is even one of the things that you may end up having. And then basically your body may feel like having some sexual intercourse. But it all comes from the brain. So if you are sensitized and you know, okay, this is normal, it's not going to last for long, you should have that self-control to be able to manage your emotions within that period, because you may never know the time that you may end up having if you are not prepared to conceive may be the time.
So it's normal?
Yes, it's normal.
It's not like the person is acting up?
No, it's normal.
Wow,
it's
interesting.
Normal.
Two more questions here for you. Good morning, Sunday Breakfast team. My name is Kukua. Whenever I take in a lot of sweets prior to my period, I experience very, very painful cramps. Is it normal? And then please ask Doc to explain the free period again.
Okay, all right. So yes, diets, I mentioned that diet has a direct role on our menstruation and how it is. There are a lot of people who may have mentioned that they taking refined things end up making them have some dysmenorrhea. I've heard a lot, over the period, and that's true. So you need to be able to tell, and one of the ways that you can actually be able to take care of this dysmenorrhea that may happen is that once you know your cycle, you can actually start taking some over-the-counter analgesics even before the menstruation period, so that it makes it less. You don't end up having, so it takes care of the pain even before the whole menstruation starts. So it's one way that you can take care of it. And then avoid the foods that are risk factors for making you have very bad or making you have some pain or dysmenorrhea during your menstrual cycle. Make sure that you stick to your fruits and your vegetables, and that should be fine with you. And then the free period again. Okay, so the free period, I mentioned that the first thing is you need to know your average cycle days or your length of cycle. Very, very important. That's when you start. Sometimes if you are a teenager and then you start, it tends to be very erratic. It's not stable, okay? But after a year or two, it becomes stable. So once it is stable, the first thing you need to do is get a calendar, and then you mark for the next 6 months to about a year. You are going to track your menstrual period. And once you track it, the first time you get your menses does happen, you need to just circle that day, okay? Then you go through it. The next time you circle it. The following time you circle it. So it helps you know for the next 6 months, okay, so this is my average cycle time. Sometimes it may be 28, other times it may be 21, other times it may be 35, depending. So the most consistent one now becomes your average cycle length. Now, I mentioned that the luteal phase is 14 days before the next cycle. So if it's 14 days before the next cycle and you have an average length of about 28, it means that when I subtract 14 from 28, I'm going to get 14. So 14 would be, the 14th day would be my suspected or my ovulation day. Okay, now that ovulation day, you are going to add 2 days and then 2 days before and then 2 days after. So that gives you about 4 days of your fertile period. And then you add about 3 to 5 days. You extend it by 3 to 5 days. That also lengthens that window, that fertility period. So that within those periods, it means that that is your fertile period. And anything outside that, you should be safe.
Wow, so many questions. Can someone be pregnant and still be menstruating?
Yes. Yes, that's possible. Depending on, you have two what's the name? You have two ovaries. That would alternatively, what's the name? You end up release the eggs, exactly. So now, if there are times, it's not that common, but there are times that you may end up having 2 of these, maybe on either side, releasing the egg. So one will start, and then possibly one gets fertilized, the other doesn't, and one will start breaking down before the other, but then it's rare. And then there are times too that possibly the fertilization doesn't happen within the uterus. It happens in the fallopian tubes, like ectopic. That is also possible. So there are so many, but even though it's rare, it's very possible. It happens.
I wish we had enough time for Ju to demonstrate how to put
yes.
on. Director, do we have time?
I teach.
Director, do we have time for Ju to demonstrate how to put a pad on?
Yeah.
The doc says we should do, director says we should do that now. So
you wash your hand.
While you're doing it, there are so many questions. Oh, Lord.
You take the pad, you gently open it.
Okay.
Where are you opening it from? Because that's a watch it.
Like that.
There you go.
Then you'd, of course, open it up.
Yeah.
Then from last week, I remember that you have to gently remove the sticky part from the back.
Yeah.
Like this.
Okay.
But let me bring it all out, right?
He's trying.
Then, when it's all completely out, what am I doing? Yeah, that way, right? When it's all completely out, you take the first.
He's already touched the surface.
But it's okay, yeah.
You take it out gently.
Oh, do you have to take that out first? I'm sure you would have to take out the sticky part and then...
From the back, right?
Yes.
Okay, like that.
And then lay it with the shorter parts facing the front, and then so you lay it on the
You have
panty
to decide
first.
which one is the shorter and the longer part,
Yes,
right?
so
So this
the-
is definitely the shorter part.
Yes, so the shorter
So the shorter
front.
part comes here.
Exactly.
You lay
And
it on
then
the
you
part
hold it just at the tip.
at the tip, yeah. So you don't touch there.
Exactly.
Then you carefully
Take out the sticky part for the wings.
take out the sticky part.
Okay.
Then you
You hold it
open
still,
that.
yeah, and then lay it
open
one
that.
on the left, one on the right. Okay.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And there you go. The
Well
part is
done.
good to be worn.
Well done.
I'll become a menstrual health advocate.
Definitely, you have passed it.
I have to become a menstrual health advocate. So, look, thank you so much for
That's it.
Wow, dude,
Yeah.
you've done well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You've done very well. Doc, thank you so much for
Thank you
this
too.
education. There's still so many questions coming in, but we cannot deal with them right now because we have to end this segment and move on to the next. But keep watching Channel One TV. Sunday Breakfast is still up. We'll be back shortly.